It was, after all, a matter of time. There was only so long I would be able to stay at home in the comforts of my own unfinished streaming room and not be forced on the run again. Because now I am on the run, once more, coming to you from a hotel room with an offensively bright lamp 6 inches from my cornea just so that you can see my face, which honestly, did I even really need to do that to you? I mean, I haven't even brushed my hair today. This is so uncouth of me, but I am back. I'm back in the hotel rooms. But the reason is actually it's quite fun. This time we're on the road filming another episode of Hidden Grounds, which is awesome. That is the dream kind of show that we do on the main YouTube channel, and we had the opportunity to hit the road again to start recording another one. Tremendously excited, but we booked it and ended up here, like 4 or 5 day turnaround, and all of a sudden I'm abroad. I'm going to keep it hushed a little bit. I'm probably going to accidentally leak all of the possible spoilers as to where I actually am. So good luck, unless you sick that one dude who's unbelievably good at GeoGuessr on me. You might not be able to figure it out. I actually can't remember if I already said it on stream or not, so that's kind of not the point. But if you don't know what Hidden Grounds is, it's actually kind of related to what we're talking about right now, or what we're going to be talking about, because I'm seemingly incapable of talking about anything without some super long intro. So here goes. Hidden Grounds is where we follow surprising national teams, clubs that maybe get less attention, and we use those clubs or national teams as an excuse to show you the culture of a particular area, to take you there, to transplant you there, and give you the experience of being there. And one of the teams that has really drawn my attention, and this is not obviously the team that we are actually making this video about here, that I'm sitting in this chair for, is the Dominican Republic. Because while the men's Olympic tournament is the platypus of the football world, it doesn't make any sense. It is also something that was capable of providing extreme beauty. And not only did Uzbekistan get to play in a major international tournament, or quote unquote major international tournament, but so did the Dominican Republic. That's right, the Dominican Republic. Now, while Uzbekistan might sound like a surprising country that to a lot of people sounds like a country I just made up, they've actually been quite close to qualifying for the Olympics on 3 or 4 separate occasions, to the point that I am a lifelong fan of the White Wolves and cannot wait for the moment that they finally actually manage to break through, because they've had so much heartbreak trying to get to the World Cup in the first place. So I'm sure they enjoyed going to the Olympics. But the Dominican Republic, on the other hand, is about as far from the World Cup as I am. They're so far away from the World Cup, they couldn't even use their imagination to figure out what it would be like to play at the World Cup. The only thing I ever knew about the Dominican Republic national team is there used to be a guy on the bench of Real Madrid who made one appearance for them when he was like 14 years old. Just kidding, he was like 16 years old, and then decided to hold out to see if he could get into the Spain team and never played for them again. That is all I knew until the 2022 U20 CONCACAF Championship, which is not something you hear about every day. But the reason I'm talking about it is the Dominican Republic, obviously. Really, I didn't structure this essay super well. I'm incredibly jet lagged. I just got here. That's a clue, I guess. But seriously, I didn't even really know that was how you qualified for the Olympics, the U20 CONCACAF Championship 2 years before an actual Olympic tournament. And you would have figured it would be the usual customers. Even though the United States had failed to qualify for the last 3, we did make it through. And it was an interesting tournament in which St. Kitts and Nevis had a minus 20 goal difference, so good for them. But it's also a tournament where there's no really unfamiliar teams that actually seem to be doing well. Sure, Cuba dropped 6 points, but they're a team that gets to play at the Gold Cup multiple times. They've played at the Gold Cup in my lifetime, which is the championship of CONCACAF. So seeing Cuba being able to put together a decent U20 national team that can get out of the group stage at this sort of tournament isn't surprising. Panama, El Salvador, Guatemala, Mexico, Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, these are regularly competitive teams in the CONCACAF stage, all just miles ahead of where the Dominican Republic's national team has ever been. For those that don't know, the Dominican Republic is actually a baseball nation. They produce an incredibly large number of Major League Baseball players. You know, the professional baseball kind of looks like cricket, but the bat is round, just in case you're from one of those areas that wouldn't know. Dominican Republic's an unbelievably good baseball nation, and when they have the World Cup of Baseball, the Dominican Republic is like one of the 3 favorites with the U.S. and Japan. They're awesome at it, so I don't even know where they're finding these guys to begin with. The answer is honestly, a lot of them are in the Spanish league and one German national team play. We'll get there later. But because of a bunch of weird qualifying quirks, the Dominican Republic ends up making it into the round of 16 because of their performance at the U21 tournament like a year earlier. And so they get an immediate route into the round of 16. And if you want to make it to the Olympics, you have to get to the final. You have to get all the way to the final of this CONCACAF U20 qualifying thing. On the top half of the bracket, all of the normal things happen. The United States beats Nicaragua, Costa Rica beats Trinidad and Tobago, Panama beats Cuba, Honduras beats Curacao, then Honduras beats Panama, the United States beats Costa Rica, and then the United States beats Honduras to send itself to its first Olympic Games since 2008, which is awesome. Very, very excited for the U.S. team, which is doing well right now. As of me recording this, they're leading Guinea 1-0 with a shot to go to the quarterfinals of the Olympic tournament. But again, that doesn't really mean anything because the Olympic tournament is just absolutely useless when it comes to assessing the ability of anything. And nothing really proves that more than the Dominican Republic, but I'm going to try to say that and also give them credit at the same time. Because in the bottom half of the bracket, things get incredibly weird. In a ridiculous game in Tegucigalpa, the Dominican Republic beats El Salvador 5-4 to go to the quarterfinals of this U20 championship, where they would take on Jamaica, a team that is conservatively 100 times better than the Dominican Republic, which the Dominican Republic then promptly beat 1-0 to force a semifinal against a team that should have been Mexico, but emphasis on should have been, because in the bottom half of the bracket, Guatemala upset Canada on penalties. Mexico blew out Puerto Rico, meaning Guatemala and Mexico then played each other in a match that Mexico has won 1,000 times out of 1,000, except somehow Guatemala pulled off the upset again and won in penalties against Canada and Mexico to force a semifinal between Guatemala and the Dominican Republic to actually make it to the World Cup. At which point, Guatemala went to a third consecutive penalty shootout, only to lose to the Dominican Republic, who had to beat El Salvador, Jamaica, and Guatemala to actually make it to the Olympics. Now, they were found out in the final. The United States beat the Dominican Republic 6-0. 6-0 in order to win and go on to well, there's nothing after that. You just kind of lift the trophy and go home. But both of these teams qualified for the Olympic Games. Unbelievably. This is a youth team which is representing a side where its senior team is right ahead of Afghanistan in the world rankings. Afghanistan's 151, the Dominican Republic is 150, behind Antigua and Barbuda, an island country that you probably have never heard of in your entire life, which, by the way, is in CONCACAF and is ranked higher than the Dominican Republic. Also, Lesotho. But honestly, the way Lesotho's playing in qualifying, they might deserve to be ranked even higher than that. If you know, you know. If you don't, get with the program. You're not watching African qualifying? What are you even doing here? But after that loss to the United States, I basically wrote the Dominican Republic off as a fluke. I mean, obviously they didn't have the hardest route. Granted, they played 3 teams that all should have beaten them in the knockouts of the U20 CONCACAF Championship. But, I mean, they showed up again in the final against the United States, which is clearly not a fantastic U20 team there, and got boat raced 6-0. So I was sitting here thinking that the Dominican Republic is going to show up at the Olympics and get absolutely blown out. We see this happen on the women's side and the men's side in the Olympics. Seems like every single Olympics tournament, there is one team that qualifies like Dominican Republic almost on accident. They get absolutely abused. Maybe it's like a Tahiti or something, and they get sent packing with that sort of minus 20 goal difference in 3 matches, and you just go, okay, that makes sense. And the Dominican Republic gets drawn into a group that, it's not the toughest possible group. Spain, Uzbekistan, and Egypt. Those are the 3 teams that happen to pop up in their group. But again, if you're comparing the ability level, particularly the senior national teams of those 3 federations, they all would beat the Dominican Republic senior national team by at least 3 goals. And in the case of Spain and Egypt, probably more than that. So my expectations were literally through the floor. And that's basically the only reason that I wasn't sitting here talking to you about the miracle of the Dominican Republic, because unlike some teams that end up at the World Cup or other major international tournaments that are surprises, and I actually believe they're going to be great, they were a surprise that I believed was going to be horrible. And I was wrong, because in the opening match, the Dominican Republic actually managed to cook up a draw against Egypt. A 0-0 draw against Egypt. An incredible result. They managed to go 90 minutes without conceding against an actual national team in an actual federation. An Egyptian team that, by the way, would end up winning this group with 7 points. The only team in this group that Egypt did not beat was the Dominican Republic. How the fuck does that make any sense at all? Except it starts to actually make a little bit more sense when you see their second match. You see, Spain did win 3-1 against the Dominican Republic, and it did take a 1-0 lead in the 24th minute. But the Dominican Republic equalized on a corner in the 38th minute and got a red card right before halftime, and it was only after that Spain ended up scoring 2 goals in the second half to win 3-1. But the Dominican Republic played an entire half against Spain, down a man, and didn't give up 25 goals, which would have been my tentative prediction. And then in the final match of the group stage, the Dominican Republic actually manages to take the lead in the second half before giving up an equalizer to Uzbekistan and ending up finishing on 2 points, which puts the Dominican Republic in third place in their group. And in 2 of their 3 matches, that's a draw. They only lost 1 match, and they were tied at halftime with Spain. I mean, I can't even begin to express to you how stunning that is. So, of course, as part of this investigation now, I'm trying to figure out who is actually on this team, and it gives you another great window into actually how ridiculous this is. You get 3 overage players at the Olympics. Their overage players play in Cyprus, Louis De Lucas. They have an overage player named Heinz Marshall, who is not on a team currently. His last team was Ujpest in Hungary. He's a guy that used to play for the Germany U18 national team, but his mother is Dominican, and he was actually born in the capital of Santo Domingo, so he switched over to the Dominican Republic recently. And if you're waiting for me to say a third name, I'm not going to, because the Dominican Republic didn't even bring 3 overage players to the Olympics. They brought 2. I mean, it is possible that this 23-year-old guy, Angel Montes de Oca, is the third overage player because he's 23. But given the fact that his birthday was, February 18th of this year, I believe he still qualifies to be able to attend the tournament as somebody that is under 23. And even if he is an overage player, he plays for Cibao in the Dominican Republic League. You've got guys from Alaves's B team, Osasuna's B team. There's a guy in the USL who plays for the Las Vegas Lights. Ingolstadt's B team, a goalkeeper from the Houston Dynamo, Real Madrid's reserve team, Volendam's U21 team in the Netherlands. I mean, this team, by every possible indication, had absolutely no chance of pulling off what they were able to pull off, based off of the organization of the federation, based off of the expectation of the federation, based off of the quality and experience and leadership of their over 23 players that they were able to bring to this tournament, the continuity, the ability to compete at a high level of anything. Dominican Republic doesn't even get to go to the Gold Cup. Like the U20 CONCACAF Championship in 2022 is the high watermark of the entirety of the accomplishments of the national team. Only 2 teams from CONCACAF got to go to the Olympics, right? There's only 16 teams in the damn tournament. This is technically the hardest large intercontinental international tournament to qualify for. And not only did the Dominican Republic make it, it finished ahead of Uzbekistan and drew an Egypt team that finished ahead of Spain, and it was tied with Spain at halftime. I just wanted the world to know how ridiculous this was and just congratulate the Dominican Republic on showing that even though the game seems to be more and more predictable at the top level, batshit crazy stuff like this can still happen. And this group of dudes should be commended for absolutely earning their spot in the Olympics and then proving they deserve to be there. The greatest footballing accomplishment in the history of the Dominican Republic, and maybe, just maybe, considering the age profile of this team, the start of something where they can start getting to Gold Cups or literally anything. I don't know. It was just awesome. Bye.